Terima kasih Anda masih bersama kami dalam Seputar Dhamma. Informasi mancanegara akan menemani Anda bersama rekan saya Zeva.
Bersama saya Zeva, inilah informasi mancanegara yang kami rangkum dalam Dhamma Dunia. The remains of the 19th century coffee plantation in the foothills of the Sierra Maestra are unique evidence of a pioneer form of agriculture in a difficult terrain. They throw considerable light on the economic, social, and technological history of the Caribbean and Latin American region. The first coffee plantation in the southeast of Cuba is a cultural landscape illustrating colonial coffee production from the 19th to early 20th centuries. It includes not only the architectural and archaeological material evidence of 171 old coffee plantation or cafetales, but also the infrastructure for irrigation and water management. The transportation network of mountain roads and bridges connecting the plantation eternally end with coffee experts' points. Individual plantations exist in varying states of preservation, from the restored Museum of La Isabelica Coffee Plantation Farm to plantation ruins that are no more than archaeological sites. Typically, plantations include the owner's house, terrace, drying floors, production areas for milling and roasting, and workers' quarters. The production of coffee in eastern Cuba during the 19th and early 20th century resulted in the creation of a unique cultural landscape illustrating a significant stage in the development of this form of agriculture. The landscape of the first coffee plantation in the southeast of Cuba has survived intact primarily due to the fact that the area was mostly abandoned in the early 20th century, as this region's traditional coffee growing techniques were increasingly unable to compete with new methods adopted elsewhere in Latin America. Current threats to the inscribed property are primarily due to its status as a largely abandoned archaeological site and the reclamation of the landscape by nature. Efforts have been made to clear and fence plantation in order to protect them from intrusions. Situated off the edge of the plateau that dominates the plain of Cambodia, the temple of Preah Vihear is dedicated to Shiva. The site is exceptional for the quality of its architecture, which is adapted to the natural environment and the religious function of the temple. The Temple of Preah Vihear, a unique architectural complex of a series of sanctuaries linked by a system of pavements and staircases on an 800-meter-long axis, is an outstanding masterpiece of Khmer architecture in terms of plan, decoration, and relationship to the spectacular landscape environment. The temple is composed of a series of sanctuaries linked by a system of pavement and staircases over an 800-meter-long axis and dates back to the first half of the 11th century AD. Nevertheless, its complex history can be traced to the 9th century when the hermitage was founded. The site is particularly well preserved mainly due to its remote location. The site is exceptional for the quality of its architecture, which is adapted to the natural environment and religious function of the temple, as well as for the exceptional quality of its carved stone ornamentation. Preah Vihear is an outstanding masterpiece of Khmer architecture. It is very pure both in plan and in the detail of its decoration. In terms of the way the buildings and their materials express well the values of the property has been established. The attributes of the property comprise the temple complex. The integrity of the property has to a degree been compromised by the absence of part of the promontory from the perimeter of the property. The protective measures for the temple in terms of legal protection are adequate. The protective measures for the temple in terms of legal protection are adequate. The progress made in defining the parameters of the management plan needs to be consolidated into an approved full management plan.
In the valley of the Rozunskilam River in northeast Bulgaria, a complex of rock-hewn churches, chapels, monasteries, and cells developed in the vicinity of the village of Ivanovo. This is where the first hermits had dug out their cells and churches during the 12th century.
The frescoes of the Ivanovo churches reveal an exceptional artistry and a remarkable artistic sensitivity for 14th century painting and Bulgarian medieval art. They are an important achievement in the Christian art of southeastern Europe, posterior to the Kora monastery mosaics. The 5 historical monuments in this group dating from the 13th and 14th centuries serve as examples that paved the way for the distinctive character development and mastery in the art of the Second Bulgarian state from 1187 to 1396. Neoclassical in spirit and in elements of their subjects, the frescoes represent a departure from the canons of Byzantine iconography. They show close ties with expressive Hellenistic art and a clear preference for the nude, the landscape, and architectural background in composition, drama, and emotional atmosphere, qualities which combine to make an exceptional masterpiece. The property encompasses within its boundaries all the components necessary to convey its outstanding universal value, but the rock massif, where the churches are situated, has serious stability problems. Over the years, a continuous program of research and scientific, technical, and design projects have focused on strengthening and stabilizing the rock formation. In consequence of a rock collapse in the early 20th century, the 13th century ceiling murals from the buried church of St. Archangels have been rescued and moved to a new substrate. The first stage of work on the 14th century murals of the collapsed St. Tara Church has also been completed.
Berita dari Bulgaria tadi menutup Dhamma Dunia hari ini. Saya Zeva, kembali ke Nancy Dea Unika. Pemirsa, itulah tadi Dhamma Dunia hari ini yang sekaligus menutup perjumpaan kita dalam Seputar Dhamma. Saya Nancy Dea Unika dan kru yang bertugas mengucapkan terima kasih atas kebersamaan Anda. Tetap semangat dan sampai jumpa.